Hello there, friends. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of An Artist's Way of Healing. I am your host, Jonathan Palmiotti. Today, we have another exciting guest speaker who has made time to be here today to inspire us on her artist journey and to tell her story on how the arts has inspired her. I am humbled to present to you Amanda Montoni from Flushing, New York. Amanda, please say hi to our listeners.
Hello, hello.
Amanda is an accomplished theater director, choreographer, and author. She is a multi-passionate person who wears many hats. She is a poet with 3 published collections, a children's book author, a playwright, and occasionally a performer. She is a co-founder of the Royal Star Theater Company, an award-winning choreographer, and a Broadway World Off-Broadway Awards-nominated director. What's taking first place for her right now is her Sweet Madness podcast to lend a hand to those who feel alone, which actually goes hand in hand with the mission of this podcast. Amanda, you bounce around the title a bunch in your podcast, Sweet Madness. In fact, it's actually a pretty clever title. You touch upon life and how it can be both sweet and madness within all the change happening, and sometimes a mixture of both. Could you please tell our listeners about how you founded the title of your podcast, and what did it mean for you to find your Sweet Madness purpose?
That's a great question, Jonathan. While I was in a place doing all of the things, going from gig to gig, choreographing, performing, running a theater company, I felt that, yes, I am very grateful for all of the good things happening, but I was going crazy. So I came up with okay, life is full of layers, life is full of gray. So I was like, okay, what's sweet? Okay, this is sweet about my life. Okay, but I'm feeling like a Mad Hatter. I'm feeling like I'm full of madness. So I just came up with the term, since life is always changing, and it's just full of constant change, I was like, well, what's a phrase that I can bring together to tie it all into a new way and maybe give people a different way of looking at life and embracing it? So I said, sweet madness. That's what life is full of. And so am I. I am full of sweet madness. So
Sweet, cool.
so that's where it came from. And the term came when I first started making my website and everything, and my newsletter. And then I was like, well, this is the name of my podcast because that's what I say all the time.
Was your idea to always make a podcast? Did it just come recently, or was this something that you've been thinking about for a couple of years?
I was definitely a kid who always wanted to be a talk show host.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So that little sort of pipe dream that I had, I realized that, oh my gosh, wait, I'm involved in a radio podcast company, which is Random Thursdays Radio Theater, and we write plays and we put them in podcast form as an homage to radio shows.
Right.
So I was like, well, podcasts are the new radio shows. So, I was like, why don't I do this? This is my version of being a talk show host.
Yeah. You talk about people being afraid to change in your podcast, Sweet Madness. To take that extra step, being afraid to do it, which is true. There are several reasons why people don't like change, whether it be nerves, or they like to follow the same flow, or even they possibly feel threatened by the change. But you mentioned something interesting, whether people realize it or not, change is always happening, and it's inevitable to stop the change. What is your definition of change? Can change be good and bad? Can it be both? Why should people embrace change?
Well, I think change is its own entity. I don't think it's either good or bad. It's just something that exists. And we all have to deal with it, whether we like it or not, because it's always happening. As people, we like to feel secure. We like to feel in control. We like familiar things. But also, on the other hand, if you woke up and every day was the same, would you be happy? Would you, exactly, would you enjoy life? So the way that I sort of hope to get people to switch to that, hey, change can be a positive thing. It will push you to have a fulfilled life and to embrace it. And that's what the goal is. And then with me, it took me a long time to accept change in different ways. Because, you know, you could love change for the sake of living your life and having, you know, different events that you go to and different schedules. But you could also be afraid of it in terms of like maybe quitting a job that you know is not healthy for you anymore, but you're afraid of taking that financial risk because you're afraid of not having that security. So the way that I sort of shifted my mindset over the years was to really think about my life and the quality of life that I want to have. So what comes first is my mental and emotional health. What comes second is, you know, I would list that out, you know, depending on the day. Because also we have different emotions every day. We feel different every day.
You wake up in the next day, you just feel one way, and then the day after that, you feel something else.
Yeah, exactly. And that's changed too. So it's really about embracing what your life could be. And really, of course, you have to weigh out the risks and all of that. Will the risk be worth the reward? Can you do this?
In the past, prior to the job that I'm currently working now, it was not within the arts, which is basically what I work in now. I remember the reason why I actually started working for that job is to gain work experience, which I didn't really have. I knew that I was coming from a musical theater performance background, and it was such a hard decision to give that up after so many years of studying theater and whatever. And then I did a switch after a long time of just thinking about exactly what I wanted to do. Did I really want to continue performing? Did I want to go into the arts of business? Because I still wanted to stay in the arts in some capacity. And it was just such a hard decision. And I remembered, you know, this was a big change for me. And it was such like a hard decision. And, you know, I just remember I had to work for that other job, even though I just disliked what I was doing so much. I didn't like going to work every single day, but I knew I had to do it in order to get to where I needed to be within the arts and arts administration. That was a big change that I felt like I was going through some sort of healing.
Yeah. And what change and imposter syndrome, I feel like that what all that comes down to is your purpose and what you want to make your life. A lot of people get lost in, I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to be this. And those people who are going through the supposed to's of what society deems as acceptable and the way you should live are the unhappiest people I've ever met. And they don't have a purpose. And then that causes internal resentment for themselves. It causes misery because they're not their best, so they're not behaving their best, so they are affecting those people around them in a negative way.
Because they're unhappy and they're trying to make other people unhappy. Whether that other person wants to actually feed off of that unhappiness or not is up to them. But you're right. Yeah. From past conversations, you mentioned to me that your definition of success within the arts is impacting people in a positive way, and that it means the world to you to connect to people, to tell their stories, and to make them heard. You believe that being an artist means being a translator to spark change or the ability to feel. Do you mind giving us a little bit of a background on how you actually got into being a theater director, choreographer, and author? Has change affected your path? Has change helped you with connecting with others through the arts?
Yeah, so my whole path into theater started with one simple thing. My grandmother playing show tunes when I was a kid. That's where it all stemmed from. That's what she used to sing. She used to sing "Getting to Know You" from The King and I, like but she's funny because she would sing off tempo, so the radio would be in one measure and she'd be like half a measure behind, and I'd be like, "Grandma, you're not singing at the right time.
Wait, stop. Gotta start again. Sing it from the beginning."
Yeah, exactly.
Now you're on tune.
But I still loved it. It's one of those quirks that made her her. And so everything stemmed from that. And then when, my grandmother used to watch musicals, so that's what I would watch with her because she used to watch me when my mom would be at work, like after school and stuff. And, when I was a kid, I used to dance and sing along to like Barney on the screen. Like
Me
I would
too.
do it. Yeah, like I would physically do, as most babies do.
Yeah.
I feel like toddlers are the ones that are most accepting of just dancing and singing along to things.
My son, yeah, he's like
All they want to do is move.
hopping.
And then from there, like I went into dance class, and then it snowballed. So the snowball just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and that is a metaphor for changing, getting bigger and bigger, and changing my and not changing my path, but changing the trajectory of my path. So from dance class, I started when I was 3. I didn't stop. So because now I had a love for performing, in junior high, I'd auditioned for the play, and I was like, I'll be on stage this way, and I'll do the musicals, and I'll dance on stage and sing on stage.
Right.
And then from there, I started to do community theater in Queens. And then after a couple of years, they saw how hard of a worker I was, and they appointed me to be on. They asked me if I wanted to be on the board, and I was like, sure. I looked at it as like, okay, this is a path for me to do more of what I want to do and love to do. So, and it's also about just really a hunger for learning every single aspect of the theater and performing arts.
I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I also feel like it connects with your idea of you wanting to still like help people and like say if you have anything you need. Because if you think about it, you know, you're being a part of something bigger by being on the board, trying to make a choice for a show or a financial choice to help everyone that wants to be a part of the organization as a whole, not necessarily on the board, but that go and do the productions there. As a director, you had the same idea, same thing, you know, when you did All Shook Up just recently that I saw. I love that show.
Oh, I'm so glad.
It was
so happy you did.
I'm going to get into that a little bit later because I was just so like wowed by it. You know, you had that idea to just be there for the actors because they needed it. You know, you directed them, you know, you guided them in a way to tell the story for the production. And in a sense, that's helping them when they need it. Part of the reason why I say All Shook Up really just hit me was because, you know, that was like one of the first community theater shows that I saw since COVID. It was for a few years, I think, you know, community theater was not really up because I guess, I mean, no. I don't know.
Even now, most of them are doing, in Queens at least, most of them are on the play path because musicals are such a big endeavor to take on. And the key word is community. The key word is community. So when you get into theater, automatically you have to form relationships and you have to automatically have that mindset, okay, of like, what do we need? How can we help each other make this the best that it can be? It's a collaborative effort. So that's where my mission comes in to helping people and everything like that.
I love it. It was just really inspiring, and I felt included as an audience member when I saw that show. And, you know, most of it was because the way you directed the show. I don't know, you probably did direct shows prior to that at you know, at Royal Star, but that was one that just like really stuck out to me. The cast was wonderful. But my real question for you is, did you get any responses from anyone afterwards other than me that said this is what I needed because it healed them from something that was going on? Did it heal something inside you? Did it help anyone specifically within the cast?
I did get feedback. It wasn't concentrating on healing, but I'm glad that you said that because the whole point of theater is to tell stories that resonate with people, whether they're an audience member or cast members or whatever, because they can see something similar on stage that they are going through, and it's a kind of like a form of catharsis. Like it's very much, and there's drama therapy for a reason. It exists for a reason. It's very cathartic. It also kind of pushes empathy and sympathy, and it makes you realize that, hey, human beings are more similar than we think. We are all more similar than we think we are. But with feedback, I have had cast members that say, I love doing this show. I love working with you. This was a great experience. And it was a show that I've always wanted to do. And I'm so happy that I got to do it. And I think what resonates with All Shook Up is, yes, it's Elvis music, so people automatically are drawn to it if they know and they are a fan of Elvis music. But the story is really about acceptance and love, and just putting our humanity and compassion forward. And that's something that I feel like we lose touch with a lot nowadays, and we forget that it exists.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the world now. That's why people are, people are going crazy.
Yeah.
People are going crazy in the world. And that's why I'm like, okay, theater is a way to kind of streamline and gather our thoughts through our emotion. And that's what people connect to. They connect to emotional familiarity and sympathy.
Yeah.
And they like to see themselves in other people, to know that they are not alone, that other people have the same problems.
Yes.
But yes, I did get feedback on that, and I'm very happy that you that the show did that for you. That's all I asked for.
One of the moments I just want to say, and I believe it was I mean, everybody loves the song, but, I think it's Falling in Love with You, Elvis Presley. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think that was at the end of Act 1?
Correct.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. And that one, I think it was at the end of the song, at the end of the show too, but maybe I'm just making that up.
They did a reprise right before the wedding. Yeah.
But the end of Act 1 was the one that really got to me. I was like, it just hit me in the heart. I was like, oh.
I cried. I cried. We did a sits probe, and it was a Sunday afternoon or a Saturday afternoon at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And all of a sudden, like I had to do director board things for a while. So I stepped away and I came back and I heard that song, and I just watched everybody completely turn vulnerable.
Yes.
And honest, just singing in a semicircle with the band for the first time. I bawled my eyes out. That was I always say sits probe is my favorite, because you get the excitement of the band for the first time. You're hearing all of the sounds. You finally get that feeling of, oh my God, we have a show. And
I just want to say something. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you
no,
off, but I
it's
had
fine.
to say it. Maybe I was not exactly in front of the first row of the audience, but I looked at every single person in their eyes, and that's how I can actually tell when there's a story happening, through the eyes. And I can tell through every single person on that stage that there was this story going on. And that, I think, was what even hit even harder. And that there was something happening there. And it was just so, like, oh my God.
The music, all I did was have them stand and fill the stage and not move. Because it's just so powerful. You know how when words fail, music speaks. In a lot of ways in theater, sometimes, if you have a song that the main focus is on, also that song is written specifically for each individual. It's not written as a group thought. It's written as soliloquies, because you have different characters singing different lines in the beginning. They're not singing it to each other. No. It's an inner monologue. And so when I blocked it, I was like, guys, we were just standing and singing. And it was really funny because at first, and I didn't really give them direction. I just say, okay, stand, sing, act your words out. It was funny because a lot of people don't know what to do with vulnerability and stillness. So I got a lot of like swaying. I got a lot of like really cheesy smiles, or really sad, like just sad, like either end of the spectrum. I'm like,
well, they didn't know what to do with their hands.
They didn't know what to do with their hands. I'm like, okay, guys, I want you to think about your words, the words you're singing. I want you to think about your character and the characters we created. If you were an ensemble character, think about what you love. It doesn't have to be another person. It can be the life that you want for your future. It can be, it could be your pet. It could be your pet. It could be your grandma. It could be anyone or anything. You are envisioning your love for this person, place, or thing. when I direct, I kind of like touch on life things because
Totally.
to be an actor, you have to be a totally different person
Right.
with all of the layers of emotions and everything
But
that
then
goes
you
with
also
it.
have to feed back off of images to kind of drive that,
Yes.
to make it relatable for you in a sense so that the stories can be told essentially.
Yes. So I was like, are you really always that happy? Or do you go through a roller coaster of emotions while you're thinking one thought? And I said, you don't have to answer, but I want you to try to do it and show the emotion on your facial expressions, not in your body. The music is powerful enough, and you guys are going to be a wall of sound. And just by expressing your individual stories through the music, the audience will be affected.
Yeah.
And I'm like, sometimes, guys, simplicity is key. You just got to scale it back to make it powerful.
Less is more.
Less is more, exactly. And they took it, they did it, and I never had to touch it again. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing, guys. Like, I don't think you like, this was the blocking day. I'm like, I don't think you understand.
I would be scared I would be scared to say the next couple of words. It's like, I wouldn't know to say, okay, shall we proceed to another scene? Or I would be afraid to say good or like amazing because I don't want them to think, oh, cocky or whatever.
Right.
It's just kind of like ruin
I
it.
said, this is the right track. Every time we do it, go deeper. And they did. And by the time the show came along, it was the most powerful scene in the show.
It really was. Really was. To move on, but
Yes.
Thank you for that. That was just, yes. I know you have multiple forms of art that you currently do. You're a theater director, choreographer, and an author. Are there any specific theater director, choreographer role models that inspired you to start doing your art? If so, who? If not, what does motivate you to do your art? Another question might be, what was your motivation to start theater directing and choreographing, and what keeps you going?
So at first I started out as a choreographer going into like the professional realm of the creative professional realm of theater. I started as a co-choreographer, and it was the same year I started teaching dance. So I had no clue what it entailed or what I had to do. But with me, I always resonated with stories. Always.
Okay.
I was a reader when I was a kid. I can also attest that to my grandmother because she always read books. I was a reader. I loved watching musicals. I loved that dance is another vehicle of telling stories, another medium of telling stories.
Yes.
So I knew that I had that, and that's really that is what kept me going and still keeps me going, is coming back to telling a story that will tell someone that they are not alone, that other people are going through the same emotional things that you are. Other people are going through the same, technical things that you are. And what's really beautiful about directing and choreography is that you're building, but you're building and you have a vision, but it's a way to also connect with the story on a deeper level because you're the one telling it.
Yes.
And as an actor, you are telling it, but you're telling your character's story. You're only telling one version of the story.
Instead of the whole picture.
So for me, I'm very much a big picture person, and then I concentrate on the little details. Like when I choreograph, I'm like, okay, I know I want this formation here. I want this formation here. I want this formation here. Now let's go into detail of the story and see how I can make the story amplified by movement, by specific movements.
When you act, do you still think about the big picture? I know that you're not probably as required to do such a big job. You're really focused more so on your character, but do you still can't help but when you're acting still look at the big picture?
I still always look at the big picture because also since I started directing and choreographing, I've seen what seeing the big picture can do for an individual storyline.
100%.
And character work and relationships with other
yes.
characters
I was just thinking
play into that. Like right now I am rehearsing for a production of Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella. I'm playing Charlotte.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's going to be very fun.
Let me know when the dates is. I'd love to come.
I will. Somehow I find it funny because I play the mean characters I have since high school, which I don't understand, but okay, because I'm not that mean in real life. so I'm like, okay, what is someone trying to tell me? But anyway, I have to step into someone else's shoes.
Okay.
And it's a stepsister, so there's a family dynamic going on. I'm the mean stepsister. I'm the not smart stepsister. And what I've thought about with my character work is why am I like this? And it all goes back to I want my mother's love. My mother doesn't love me. I want my mother's love. So that's why I act this way.
I always think about, when I'm playing a character, you just said like, oh, I don't know why I'm playing this character, but I always think about like, oh, well, maybe they put me in this character because they know I can do it.
Mm-hmm. And I can bring something new to the table to convey a different message. And
just to kind of relate to the idea and mission of this podcast, perhaps that's something that you didn't even know that you needed to heal.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Because we think about we audition for something that we go into. But let's say we do Cinderella, right? And we really, really wanted the prince or Cinderella or whatever. Mm-hmm. Then we got a stepsister, and we weren't as happy. We're like, whatever. But then everybody sees the stepsister or stepsisters as one particular way. Mm-hmm. But they don't see the back story of perhaps there's something that really bothers them. Because also, I think I heard this somewhere recently, something that's bothering someone has to have to reflect from something else. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's something from childhood, maybe that's something recently, but it doesn't mean that they're actually angry or upset at you. They're upset about something else, and they're just taking it out on you because they have no one else to do that to, or they feel that that's the right way to do it. Mm-hmm. Regardless, I feel like when you play a role that's unexpected, that's an opportunity to say, oh, well, maybe there's something that this person's struggling that actually I can relate to. Maybe this is going to heal me, or this is going to be some sort of process. Because, things may not just heal overnight. It's not going to be a healing process overnight. Mm-hmm. But at least it's on a path to becoming toward healing. Yeah. Amanda, you're also an author, which you actually have an impressive repertoire of work out there so far with 4 published books and a weekly newsletter, which you mentioned before about the newsletter. Mm-hmm. The 4 published books for our listeners, a children's book called Bella the Bucktooth Ballerina, a grayscale love affair, Thoughts While Singing, and Trains, New York, and the love or lack thereof that goes along with them. I am sure that you are writing these books based off of life experiences, but out of all of your published works, which of one of these books hits closest to home to you? Which is your favorite, and which work do you feel most connected to on a spiritual, mental, or emotional level, or all?
Yeah, it would definitely be Thoughts While Singing. It's my most personal poetry book out there, and I wrote it at a time when I was really experiencing trials and tribulations in terms of romantic relationships and what I thought romantic relationships were and my standards. I think I wrote this while I was going into my mid to late 20s. Okay. So I was very much aware of how life was changing. Yeah. And also getting more of a grip on my mental health, who I was becoming, and, thinking bigger and not thinking of myself as small. This is a very personal book in a way because it kind of filtered out and helped me heal what I never faced. I was a late bloomer, so I didn't know much or who I was in relationships, and I've constantly found myself losing myself in relationships. Okay. Because I would just want to be this perfect image, this perfect version of a person for the other.
Because that's what you think that they would want.
Because, yes, yeah. Exactly. So I would lose myself, and I still did my projects and stuff, but I noticed that I wasn't giving my projects, shows that I directed, or I directed The Addams Family when I was in a relationship, and I did not give it my 100%. And I'm usually a person who gives my 100% to the work that I do.
And we all know that. Because you're, you know, I could see it. You give a good work ethic.
Thank you.
Go on. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I was like, that's not cool. And, you know, of course, depending upon the person, there's different things that happen. Like, I found myself becoming more of a caretaker and a babysitter than a partner.
You were mentioning that also in your most recent episode.
Yes.
The one that came out last week.
Yes. For those of you, well, I don't know when this airs. It was probably a long time ago now, but it's called The Single Struggle. It came out during Valentine's Day time.
I realize that now. When you just said that, yes, it'll be a few months.
It'll be a few months, but give it a listen. If you're single out there, it'll help you in any way, shape, or form, or I hope it does. But I noticed that people that I was associating with and giving my heart to were taking my energy instead of fueling my energy. There were definitely things that were not healthy for either of us. Mental health problems, anxiety problems, substance abuse problems. So it's like I knew that I needed to find a way to figure out what I didn't want for myself first, so that I could then find what I am looking for my future.
To heal you.
To heal me. And Thoughts While Singing is me filtering that out and being raw about it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because you need to let it out first.
For it to heal you.
For it to heal you.
But I just want to, because you touched upon, you know, the way you write and how you write and why you write. You mentioned that you brought a poem with you today that surrounds the idea of healing. Do you mind telling our listeners what the poem is about, that specific one that you brought, what inspired the creation of the poem? And can you perhaps read a brief excerpt of the poem out loud for our listeners?
Yeah, sure. It's called My Spotlight. I associated my journey with this particular relationship and a few, you know, dabbles here and there, it being in the dating world. And basically it does touch upon losing myself in another person, and kind of like my light shining and then going dim and then blacking out and then finding a way to make my light shine again, but in a different way.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to read it. It's called My Spotlight, and here it goes. In the process of losing sight of myself, I became the person I always wanted to be. I am the lead in my own story, illuminated by self-love and independence. Thank you for helping me see by way of fading into a blackout. The end. Oh, I should also mention that every single poem in Thoughts While Singing is tied to lyrics in a song. And there's a playlist that accompanies the book.
Oh, wow. How'd you get that? How did you figure that? How did that work out?
So the birth of Thoughts While Singing actually happened. I was listening to probably a
beautiful play, by the way. I just want to really just say that.
Poem.
Sorry.
Thank you. But I think there are two favorite artists that just I adore, and they are basically my spirit animals. They're kind of like my human spirit animals in a lot of ways. Stevie Nicks and Alanis Morissette. So I was in the car, and I think I was probably listening to probably a Stevie or Alanis song.
Okay.
And I heard a lyric, and all of a sudden I wrote a poem in my head. Like the lyric inspired the poem but what inspired it was because I resonated with it so much on a deep level in that moment of what I was going through or what I was thinking about. So the poem kind of just wrote itself. It was short. It was probably like a line or something like that. And so that's kind of how like the birth of Thoughts While Singing came to be. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to tie every single poem to a song. So the book is not only heightened by words, it's also heightened by music, and also it's interactive.
Wow.
Like, that's fun.
That's so cool.
The playlist is on Spotify. There's a Thoughts While Singing official playlist.
That's what it's called, Thoughts While
Yes.
Singing?
Yes.
Our listeners, it's called Thoughts
Thoughts
While
While
Singing.
Singing.
By Amanda Montoni.
Yeah. But this poem, especially the last stanza, I think is the most important of it. Thank you for helping me see by way of fading into a blackout. So in order to become who you want to be, me become who I want to be, I had to shed old layers and old ways of thinking.
Oh, that's creative.
Which also comes back to change.
Change. I was just thinking that. Oh, man.
Yeah, it also comes back to change. So that was a big personal change for me in seeing how, and I'm not saying it's the only the other what's really, really important about this poem particularly is that when I wrote it, I'm like, I'm not putting the blame on other people. I'm not putting the whole blame on other people.
Yeah.
I am now aware of what I brought to the table, and
right.
I am self-reflecting as well, because with two people are bringing two things to a situation. They're bringing each of them are bringing their own baggage and their own trauma and their own projections. So it's not only one person at fault. It's a two-way street through and through, even if it feels like it isn't.
Yeah. And I always think about this, and I said this in the last episode that I just did, but you never know what the other person is going through that you are talking to or you're in a relationship with. Maybe you know a little bit better if you're in a relationship with them, but if you're talking to someone, whether it be someone you're walking down the street with or someone you just haven't seen, like that's a friend, you know, it's always really just important to be kind to the other person and to give love and just thought and understanding to what they're saying. You know, don't judge them. Don't tell them that, oh, you know, that's horrible. You shouldn't be doing that. You know, just really listen. Try to understand because maybe they're just looking for listening.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, you have to be aware of, is this person wanting me to listen right now, or do they want my help? If they want your help, they're gonna ask.
Yes.
If they're just venting and they right away just talk to you, most likely they just want to be heard.
And I can assume that, you know, for you, I don't know what your healing process was at that point in your life, but I can only just assume that it was just a really vulnerable moment for you where, you know, whether you had an interaction with someone, you were just kind of seeing like how you can actually channel your way through that conversation if someone was going to actually say something that was not really what you wanted to hear, or you know, maybe it was what you wanted to hear. Maybe you did want them to react to it. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you just wanted them to just talk to someone. Really, you know, it's so important because there are some people that they just don't know what their next steps are going to do, and perhaps just you listening or someone's advice in a gentler way is just going to change their day.
Yeah.
For another thing.
And that's very hard to do if specifically it's something that is a conflict between you two, and you also have your own stuff going on. It's very difficult to get out of that me mindset.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. But
because you want to relate, but you also don't want to be offensive at the same time, right?
Exactly. And we could project our own problems onto another without even realizing it. Like, we might not realize in the moment that we're being selfish by saying me, and we're not actually listening to them. We're having a conversation, but we're not having a meaningful conversation because we're not actually listening to each other. And so it's hard work, but the hard work is worth it. If you really care, you would work it out. Of course, you know, there are whole nuances of, you know, your boundaries and, you know, what you're willing to accept, what you're willing to not, your red flags and whatever, and your priorities. But if you go through it and you have a understanding and respectful conversation, and you're not thinking in the mindset of your feelings, you're kind of thinking in more of a outside looking in kind of thing, like the big picture. It'll help you move forward.
100%. It's a combination of everything. But then again, also it's also different for everybody. I also want to just make sure that,
Oh yeah,
because
definitely.
people are always going to have different opinions or different choices and different whatever, because then there's just gray, and people don't want to get stuck in the gray because they want. That's why we have different varieties of things or different
Hmm.
hobbies that are going to get people out of different mindsets or whatever, like theater. Like we're into theater, you and me,
Hmm.
but something else may be very much like they want to go golfing because that's just going to clear their head. That's going to help them find some sort of healing. Amanda, one thing I really admire both in your podcasts and newsletters is that you always tell your followers that you are here for them and that you want to hear their story and to listen to them, which is something I really admire and aligns well with my own mission for myself in this podcast. What was your motivation to take this approach? How does listening and hearing other stories impact you?
Well, I've always been more of the observer. When I was younger, I used to basically, if like the whole family was talking or there was some sort of argument going on, I would sit there quietly and just kind of observe. And I think from that, I gathered this mindset of everybody has a different way that they see life based on their life experiences. It kind of originated from that. And then also when I thought about it, when I started writing plays and started writing more in depth with like stories and stuff, that's all writing and creating is. If you're creating a whole story, you have to be able to understand where different characters are coming from at all times and seeing the big picture and grasping everybody's feelings at the same time. And a lot of the time when I was observing, say it was an argument, people feel like they're not being heard. And that's a constant battle that I also deal with because I am more of an observer. I
Yeah.
feel like I have trouble expressing myself, which I've improved on through the years. But I always feel like when I'm trying to express myself, I'm more concerned about not expressing what I'm feeling to really hone in on saying what I'm feeling without triggering another person. I feel like I have trouble expressing what I'm really feeling because I'm too concerned about the other person's feelings. Say if I'm like having an argument about something or a debate, which then invalidates myself. So I know that through a lot of differences and conversations that I've had with people I've met throughout my life, including friends and family, the bottom of it is people want to feel seen and people want to feel heard and people want to feel validated. So I'm like, okay, let's put that at the forefront because that's also how people feel comfortable. That's how people feel like they can trust you. That's how people feel like they can actually confide in someone because trust and confiding in others is a big, I feel like a big problem that a lot of people have, and ultimately connecting with other people. So for me, I'm like, well, I'm an observer. People want to feel validated and I care about other human beings. That is what I'm going to gather and what part of my mission is as a writer and a just overall human.
Yeah, I can kind of relate to what you're saying. I'm the type of person where I don't always express myself. I'm a rather introvert type of person. And even when I'm talking to someone, I'm always thinking in the back of my mind, am I going to offend them? I'm always worried about the other person. I'm worried about what they're going to think. Sometimes try to like over go out of my way to try to make people think I'm convenient to them. I try to make things work for that other person. And, there have been instances where I've tried to overextend it to the point where it was just so much and I never really had that reciprocation back. I am one of those people where, because I'm an introvert, I don't always make friends easy. I'm not always understood in regards to who I am. And that it spoke to me, every single episode you say it, or every single newsletter that you release, I do
Mm.
follow you as a subscriber for your newsletter as well.
I saw that. I was like, oh, look, there's
Yeah,
Jonathan.
and it just kind of made me think about me, myself, like you're giving an opportunity for your listeners and your audience to really tell their story. And there was one time where I actually reached out to you after one of your episodes, and I think I said this earlier in this episode, but there's not a lot of opportunities where, podcasters or people in general give that opportunity to say, I want to hear what you're thinking. And part of that starts to kind of build into my overall mission as for myself as a person, and saying like, oh, I want to hear other people's stories. I want to help them heal if they feel like they just need to talk to someone or they just want to say it, whether they want someone to actually respond or just to listen. I want to be there for them.
It's also kind of like a balancing act, because you don't want to help people too much and care too much about hurting other people's feelings, even though it's coming from a good place, because that is neglecting yourself. And then all of those feelings inside is going to fester. But then you don't want to over exert yourself and push yourself onto other people. So there's a balancing thing. I
think that's what I'm struggling with.
Yes, the balancing thing is what I call life. Like, everybody has, different things that they're working on themselves. With me, I'm working on communicating clearer, because I also get into that place where I kind of over-explain without actually saying what I'm feeling, and how it makes me feel. And a lot of that has to do with communication, like not feeling appreciated. Maybe, in some other relationship scenario, they did appreciate you. They did notice the things you were doing to them. They just didn't say thank you.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to. It's really coming down to like respecting the other person enough to say thank you, and letting your pride get down. And that goes on both sides. Like, sometimes I get very proud that I am a listener, and in the end, it's counterintuitive and counterproductive because I'm not helping myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get it's like a balancing act. It's very much the balancing act of life.
Right. No, of course.
Not around it, through it. You got to go through it to get out of it.
100%. How frequently do you reflect on your journey that led you to today? Or also, is there a specific moment in your journey that really stands out to you that you felt good about, or even just makes you reflect on what you have accomplished?
I'm reflecting more so the past couple of years than I have in the first years of my life. I started going to therapy about 2 or so years ago. It was because of my ability to handle stress that I went into therapy, and then from there it kind of just blossomed into like, oh my God, like, wow, okay, here's where that's coming from. And okay, you didn't have fault here, but everybody has some sort of thing they contribute to a situation. It's not all just someone else's fault. There's everybody has something that they bring to a situation.
No one's perfect.
Yeah, no one's perfect. And it's, I used to be one of those people that kind of would put blame on everybody else except myself.
I think that's natural, though.
That is natural, but even though I'm very hard on myself, but that's because of, embedded social construction, and, like certain philosophies that you grew up thinking, because that's what you knew. That's what you knew your whole life. You were a kid. You didn't really think for yourself. And when kids ask questions, they're usually not answered in a truthful way. They're usually
and they're not taken seriously.
And they're not taken seriously. When I taught dance, there were kids that had questions, and kids are so smart. Kids are so observant. They are a blank slate. They are discovering the world. And I would see like a lot of different instances, and I would even do this when they asked me some questions. I would give like some sort of sugar-coated answer or mask what they're really questioning with something else. Now, I didn't have the authority to bring them those answers because, one, I was a dance teacher and not their parent, and two, I know that I'm shaping their minds in a certain way. because all teachers do. So I have to be very careful on what I say. It's a double-edged sword.
Today.
Yes. There's a lot going on, and
lot.
everybody has their thoughts about things, and they believe certain things, and they think certain things are wrong and certain things are right. That's why also I've noticed, when you were going back to your question, the biggest accomplishment in reflecting and everything is actually learning and discovering and realizing that nothing is completely either black or white, in terms of context. There's always going to be some variable that changes your thought and that you didn't think of. There is absolute truth, like facts, right? But the context around that fact may not be just a straight line. It's never a straight line.
Yeah.
So that's probably the biggest accomplishment and biggest thing I've realized in this journey, especially when dealing with theater, because you have to get in touch with so many different characters and other people. It's kind of like I had no choice but to think of everything else.
Yeah.
I just, what's very important is that we keep in mind that we are always learning everything. Like, it goes back to like when I was talking about change and everything, but it's always important to keep an open mind, because the minute we stop having an open mind or think we know everything,
yes,
like we're like, no, we know all the facts, I know exactly what you're thinking and how you're feeling, chances are you don't. You have to talk to another person if it's an argument or something to figure that out, what they're feeling, and what the source of what they're feeling is coming from. Someone wrote this, and it's Mark Manson, but basically he's an author, and he's the author of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F word.
Got it.
He has his own podcast now, and the very thing that stuck with me with that book, and he also wrote a sequel called another title with a curse word in it, but the thing that really stuck out to me from the book was, the minute you think you know everything, you know nothing, because you stop yourself from learning, and the world is going to keep going.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop.
Change. Things are going to evolve.
Yes. So I think that's important with healing journeys too, is that when you get to a certain point, it often happens that something, like, you're feeling good, you're like, yeah, I got this all down pat, I'm fully healed. Then something happens and you're like, I don't feel good.
And that's where that's kind of, if you think about it, that's where egos kind of start to form.
Yes.
Because if they actually are so sure about something, they are so stuck in their ways that that's going to kind of come across, maybe not, I don't know. Mm-hmm. It depends on how you say it, to someone else, then they're going to think like, oh, well, you're so vocal about being stuck in your ways. How do you know that that's the end result, the end game?
Yes, how do you know that's the end game? It's not Avengers. It doesn't end. Avengers kept going, guys. There's more movies. There was more comics, I think.
Going.
It's still going.
People are evolving. People are taking into new roles.
Yes.
And I think you made a good point. And I think people need to keep an open mind, to continue to reflect, because if you don't, you're going to close off other people and yourself from growing.
Yeah, and I think people have a lot of misconceptions about healing, that it is an end result, and it's not. Your body part that healed could unheal again. And I used to have friends who would say, no, I have to be fully healed before I can give myself to another person. Mm-hmm. There's nuance in there. Yes, I think you should be comfortable and know yourself and be healed with yourself enough first before you start fully giving your life to another person. But to have this mindset of, no, I have to be fully healed before I can be in a relationship, you're never going to be in a relationship. And ironically, and it turns out that most of the time, the people that say that are the ones that want relationships the most.
Yes.
So I'm like, we're all works in progress. We're never going to fully heal. Never, ever, ever. And it's very hard to get people into that mindset because of just the way, our world ended up being in terms of this thinking.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
And a lot of the time, the society is,
yes.
kind of a part of that
yes.
decision. Yeah. Anyway, do you sometimes feel like you cannot relate to others in a certain way because of who you are as an artist, and that you feel like you stand out? Are there any barriers that you run into?
Yeah. When that happens, it's mostly because it's a different school of thought. It all turns back to how you were growing up and, what you learned in school or through life experiences. And the best way that I deal with it is to just sit and listen and really try to hear them.
Yeah.
Sometimes the barrier is that even if I am trying to listen, it's usually a situation where I'm feeling something on a deeper level internally that is blocking me from actually fully listening to them because I'm too wrapped up in what I'm feeling. So the barrier is actually trying to deal with my emotions and stay calm. And I'm not saying to push your emotions away and not deal with them because that is unhealthy. Really try to just deal with them in the moment, switch my brain perspective, be like, okay, I'm feeling this, but I do not have to react like I'm feeling this.
Yeah.
And that opens the mind to actually hearing the other person and where they're coming from.
Do you feel like there's a time and a place to eventually unload those other feelings?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And this would be in a relationship in general, or would this be a second question to that?
Uh-huh.
Would this be in a relationship in general, or would it be just like with a partner?
I think it's all around. Well, there's one thing you have to know first, and everybody deals with emotions in a different way. For me, I'm a person who, if I feel really strongly about something and I know that I'm not in a place to talk something out with someone else, whether it's a friend, a partner, a relationship, whatever, I'm the type of person that has to step away.
Okay.
And
recollect
and maybe get it out. Sometimes I scream, sometimes I cry into a pillow, sometimes I write, sometimes I do yoga. Sometimes I dance and do something active. It all depends on which emotion I'm feeling, but I need to get it out by stepping away from the situation and thinking about it before I can come back to discussing it, because I know that me being in an emotional state trying to talk with someone is not going to benefit anyone. It's not going to benefit me. It's not going to benefit them. They're not, it's the what we're trying to solve or what we're arguing about is not going to be productive.
Yeah.
The conversation is not going to be productive because I'm too emotional. I need to step away. There are other people who just go and need to fight it out. And that's where it comes to respecting your whoever it is, your friend, your partner, your significant other, whatever. That's where it comes into, you need to know how the other person deals with certain things. And I know, like, in a way that's like, but then I'm not helping myself. Well, then that's when you really got to think about, is what I'm doing now going to benefit what is happening right now, or will it make it worse? Is it worth it right now? That's also a different mindset for people to get into. It's hard.
Here's what I think about when I am in a mindset where I'm angry, or I'm just have an altercation with someone or anything. I choose to walk away, and then sometimes I actually tend to just not want to even continue a conversation with that person in general. And that may happen if you know that the individual that you're talking to will never end up coming to an end result of being vulnerable as a reciprocated, feeling. For example, the people that are always feeling that they're the right person, they'll kind of argue about that until the end, that what you did was incorrect or whatever. And it kind of makes me feel like, you know what, I'm going to heal myself by stepping away from a toxic environment and just not going there. but then there are some people you can actually go ahead and have that conversation and try to figure it out. I never feel like I feel comfortable enough to actually go ahead and have an argument to the point where, sometimes I need to like say, you know what, it's not worth it because they're just not going to get it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And just maybe that's just the best, and the best treatment for that is silence. But at least I'm stepping away from an environment where it's going to be more and more towards a danger zone for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. You're in that way, it's like fight or flight. Like, which would benefit me most right now?
Yeah.
Which would not damage me or anything else even further. And there are instances where it's like maybe it does have to break down to actually find a new way to repair and change it.
And that's what I was kind of getting at. Like, you need to find that way to heal, but maybe it's not by reconciling with that person. Maybe it's through something else.
Yeah, I've been, it's difficult because we like to say general things with how to do certain things. But what it really comes down to is you have to be aware of the person that you're talking to, or you're arguing with, or you have a problem with, or the situation that you have a problem with, because they are a different person, and then this person is different than the next person you're going to have a relationship with. So I've been in instances where I've had arguments or conversations or difficult situations where I didn't fully agree with someone and we were trying to solve a problem, where we would sit and talk calmly and we had an objective mindset because we are able to do that. And then I've had screaming matches with people that I'm crying, and it ended up being dangerous for a little bit. But then after you get the cries out, crying is a relief. It's a form of relief. You're literally, things are literally coming out of your body. So then after that, and after like crying and the yelling and the calm down, it's like, okay, we needed to get all of that out so we can then rebuild and get to that objective mindset of solving a problem. Because most of the time, the problem is something bigger. It's like something bigger than yourselves. And it tends to be something that in the moment you feel like you have no control over. Maybe you don't have any control over. You just need to figure out how to navigate it with this person because it affects you both.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's a problem you both are trying to solve. But instead, past emotions and things of the past get in the way. So then you're actually not arguing anymore about you're not actually discussing anymore about how to solve the problem together. You're just going backward and saying and putting blame on the other person, and not actually, it turns into something else.
Yeah. I saw a quote on social media once that it was maybe a couple of weeks ago. And it said, I guess this is a two-part thing. One is because the reason why people get into altercations is because people don't respect boundaries of the other person.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a reason. But also, us as a society have to relearn that if you disagree with someone or that person disagrees with you, vice versa, whatever, but that doesn't mean I hate you.
Right.
Or that person hates you. It's okay to have those boundaries and to disagree with each other. We just have to relearn that in society. That's what the quote said.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe that.
Oh, me too. Me too. There's like no boundaries going on. And that's why, like, especially being a woman, there's a lot, like, when in terms of like, dating and everything, at the dating pool, I'm like scared sometimes because I'm like, I'm on a date or whatever, and then they ask a question and I say no. It's like, are they going to freak out on me? Are they going to like beat me up? Are they going to like, what are they going to do? Are they going to accept it? Like it's like just that fear. Like, people think no means not you entirely.
Many people believe that art actually heals people. What are your thoughts on the arts helping people heal themselves?
It's an all-encompassing thing. I think it definitely does. And there's a flip side to it too, depending on what role you play in the arts. And everything like that. But The arts, even with its trials and tribulations, it tests you. Um, it tests you for the kind of human that you are and the kind of human that you want to be. Um, and it can be very cathartic, or it can be very like, uh, what's the phrase I'm looking for? Like a slap in the face to make you realize.
So you think it
what's
could heal, but not always?
I think it could heal. I think it always heals because it makes you realize things about yourself.
Okay.
You just got to be willing to think about it if it's not a positive experience. Like I have instances where I've worked on shows and I just was like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have like the next show is like, oh my God, this is like great, you know. But in each different scenario, I learned something new about myself. And in the long run, it's healing because I now know who I am as a human being more so than I did yesterday.
That's interesting.
And it's like that quote from Alice in Wonderland. I can't go back to yesterday because I was a different person then. And thank you, Lewis Carroll. And, and there's a reason why Alice in Wonderland is one of my favorite books. And it's like, how can you heal if you don't know yourself? How can you heal if you don't accept yourself for the good and the bad and the in-between about yourself? How can you actually heal and go through the process of healing every day?
So one of the things that art does to us is it provides opportunities for growth, healing, inspiration, and love. It helps friendships develop. It provides friendly social atmospheres and gives people a purpose in their life. It does much more than that too. In fact, it could be said that a lot of people rely on their art to get through life, whether that be getting through a rough day, week, month, or even year. The arts allow some people to give themselves another chance at life when life has not been kind to them and they feel like giving up. These individuals use the arts as a healing mechanism to cope and escape with their issues that are happening within their own lives. Which brings me to this question. Could you name a time when you have struggled immensely, and how has your art helped heal you and guide you to a brighter future?
It has always been there, but the biggest time that I feel like art was really healing me or just keeping me leveled was in 2017. That whole, and then my other grandmother passing away, my cat, poor Sambuca, my cat passing away as well. We did the review in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
We did the St. Jude's fundraiser
Right,
review.
yes.
If I didn't have that, and if I didn't have Royal Star Theater, we did like a Valentine's Day review that year. If I just didn't have that experience in Disney World with my friend, like I think I would be very different today. Also another time would be when I was in my like first very serious relationship. I was like, oh my gosh, someone likes me. And it ended up being a very toxic relationship. You know, there were alcohol problems, there were drug abuse problems, there were just general depression and anxiety problems. And I had my first panic attack when I was in that relationship,
Wow.
like ever in my entire life. And I remember I was with him when it happened and he didn't do anything. And I was like, okay, like he was too drunk or whatever and he was sleeping, and my brother actually helped me. Thank you, Nick. I broke up with him because it wasn't healthy for me. And that's really when I started to realize some things about me that aren't great mentally, and some things that were pushed into me socially, being a woman in society. I realized that I wasn't aware of the toll that the patriarchy had on me in a lot of different ways, like expecting to be a certain way, expecting to be this role, and taking care of other people. So I was basically his babysitter and taking care of him 24/7. And I worked on a number of shows when I was with him. But the thing that really healed me was after I broke up with him, I wrote a poem in my book, Thoughts While Singing, and I re-released the book. It was an extra section that I put in the back. It was a poem called Reasons Why You Loved Her A More Than Mine.
Okay.
Because my name is Amanda, and alcohol starts with the letter A.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's one of the rawest poems that I have in the book. There's another one as well. There's a couple other ones in that section as well. But if I didn't write it down and I didn't if I didn't write it down and I didn't let myself cry, if I didn't let myself cry while writing it, I think I never would have actually let that leave me. Like, the trauma's still there, but it's now manageable.
Yeah, you're always going to remember.
Yes.
But if you think about it in a positive push towards a better future, you learn what you don't want.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah, I was after, it was a while after I broke up with him or whatever, and I was talking to someone, and I was talking about, like, dating and relationships in general, and they were like, what do you want in a partner? And I said, I know what I don't want. What really it comes down to is what I figured out is that when people ask what you want in another person, people don't name their values, when that's what they should be concentrating on. They're concentrating on their physical appearance, what clothes they wear, what color eyes they have, what bands they like.
Because that's only temporary.
Yes.
What's inside is what is going to be forever.
Yes.
And yeah, I understand.
Yeah. So that poem, writing that poem, was a big way that I healed.
If you were to be able to go back in time, what would you tell your younger self when you were looking for healing through your art? Would you have said something that might have been helpful for your journey? And then also, what would you tell a future up-and-coming artist who is also looking for a way to navigate the arts and to also find their own healing journey simultaneously?
Yeah, I would probably tell my younger self the same thing I would tell someone who is looking to navigate the arts and healing. I would say, breathe. Just one word, breathe. Like, take a breath, and with that, breathe. They can interpret it whichever way they want, but you need to breathe. For me personally, with my younger self, it's breathe. You have this love for a reason, for the arts. It's in your heart for a reason. Discover what that big reason is. And the way you do that is to not worry about the pressure. Let the pressure fall away. I always was a person who put a lot of pressure on myself. I still do. We all need a little pressure to kind of nudge us in the right direction. But too much pressure, it goes back to balancing. Too much pressure can stop ourselves from actually accomplishing what we want to do. So I would say, less pressure, forget about the other people, listen to what your heart is telling you.
Amanda, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us on An Artist's Way of Healing and for sharing your story with us. I can definitely say that you have impacted lives today in a positive way with your words, wisdom, and most importantly, the story you shared that led to your fulfilling journey as an artist. I hope people also get inspired to find their own journeys through art. I am sure that people in the theater and dance industry and those who are authors have also been impacted today. Our healing through our art keeps us going and thriving. It helps us lead to more healthy, successful, and fulfilling lives. Amanda, it's super clear to me and to our listeners that you have such a tenacity for spreading positive vibes and affirmations to people. You listen to people when they need it most. You are there for people even perhaps when they may not necessarily be there for you. You provide guidance and justification that people may need. To me, that's someone who's able to find healing countless times and who has been able to navigate it through life experiences. You're also on to great things with your talents and artistic endeavors, and I am so excited for all the projects and adventures that have come and that have yet to come for your future. Thank you for being you and for being an advocate for the arts for those who need it most. If anyone is looking for someone to talk to, whether it be conversing ideas, have a certain struggle in their life currently, or needing advice on how to navigate difficult situations, Amanda's open to always being there for her listeners. Artists need to support each other in difficult times in their lives, and Amanda is willing to do just that. Do you need a change? Suffering from imposter syndrome? Are you alone, or are you struggling to relieve grief? Give the Sweet Madness podcast a listen. I can assure you it provided clarity for me. And one more time, for those who are looking to book Amanda's services, Amanda, please let everyone know where they can find you.
Oh, thanks, Jonathan. I'm smiling. You can find me on my website, www.amandamontoni.com. I'm most active on my Instagram at amanda.montoni.
Great. Thank you for that. And with that said, thank you all again for tuning in. I'll see you next time, friends.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.